Good evening, hello and welcome. You're watching Viewpoint. I'm Anusha Soni. The government has constituted a special committee headed by former President of India, Ramnath Kovind, to explore the possibility of one nation, one election. The move comes the day after the government called a special session of the parliament between September 18 and 22, the agenda for which is still under wraps. Over the years, this idea has been debated and pitched multiple times. It's not new in the public domain, but that doesn't make it any less controversial. Few years ago, back in 2018-19, when the Law Commission was looking at it, there was a draft committee report that was put out by Justice B.S. Chauhan. It was argued that yes, in notion it may be a great idea, but it is often a tool for an individual political party to assert their dominance. Noting the era of the 1960s, it was argued that the Congress party has used the idea of simultaneous elections as a way to assert its own dominance. One of the moot points against it is that whether it is against the federal structure of the constitution. The government argues, and many proponents of this idea argue, that it's going to save a lot of money to the public exchequer. It comes at its own cost. You would need more VVPAT and EVM machines. That's another debate. But how feasible and tenable is this idea? The opposition calls it a mere diversionary tactic because the alliance parties, the opposition alliance, is holding a meeting. We discuss all these aspects on Viewpoint tonight.
केवल संविधान में संशोधन राज्यसभा और लोकसभा में हो जाए उसको संभव नहीं, राज्यों को भी स्वीकृति देनी चाहिए। हर जो राज्य विकसित हैं वो वहाँ अपनी विधानसभा बना।
नॉट वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन, वी वांट फेयर इलेक्शन, जो आज देश में नहीं हो रहा है। और ये फेयर इलेक्शन जो हम मांग रहे हैं, ये टालने के लिए ये वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन का ये फंडा लेकर आए।
We have always opposed the policy because India is a union. It's not a one government, one the central government, union government has always been like one nation, one language, one election. So India is basically unity in diversity.
देखिए, भारतीय जनता पार्टी का देश के संविधान और लोकतंत्र में विश्वास नहीं। वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन भारत के लोकतंत्र में संभव नहीं है। भारतीय जनता पार्टी का वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन में छुपा हुआ एजेंडा है। वो भारत के जितने भी क्षेत्रीय दल हैं उनको समाप्त कर देना चाहती है।
I think it's just a diversionary exercise. Already 3 reports have been submitted and it has been totally rejected. And for them to start it is only and only to divert people's agenda.
ऐसा लग रहा है कि इनकी हार जो है बिल्कुल सामने, बिल्कुल साफ साफ नजर आ रही है कि जिस तरह ये हर स्टेट एक स्टेट के बाद एक स्टेट जो है हार रहे हैं। तो इसमें इनकी कोशिश रहेगी कि जो हमारा ये यहाँ सेटअप है, एक फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर है, उसको ये कमज़ोर करने की एक गड़ी है।
एक चुनाव में 60,000 करोड़ रुपया खर्च हुआ है। सभी राजनीतिक दलों का खर्च सरकार के खर्चों को शामिल करने 60,000 करोड़। और आए दिन चुनाव है, आए दिन आचार संहिता है, विकास का काम बाधित हो जाता है। अगर पूरे देश के अंदर विधानसभा और लोकसभा का चुनाव एक साथ हो, अरबों खरबों रुपए की तो बचत होगी, साथ ही साथ विकास की गति भी तेज।
लगातार चुनाव के कारण रिफॉर्म का जो प्रोसेस होता है उसमें भी एक प्रेशर आता है और अलग अलग दल फिर अपने राज्यों में उन रिफॉर्म्स को रोक देते हैं ताकि इलेक्शन में उनको फायदा मिल सके। तो वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन के कारण 5 साल की खुली स्लेट रहेगी, पैसा भी बर्बाद नहीं होगा और रिफॉर्म्स की प्रोसेस भी अच्छे तरीके से चलेगी।
Now this commission will definitely look after the issue of one nation one election because multiple election involve lots of money and because every time India is in election mode, development suffered a lot.
A key reform or a mere diversionary tactic? That's the key question. That's the moot question that we talk about. Let's take you through the various aspects of this particular idea. Simultaneous elections. They ensure that the voter turnout is better because there are no different electoral cycles and people can just go out on a single day or in a single week and vote. there could be confusion among voters. Suppose BJP is a predominant party or Aam Aadmi Party is a predominant party, the voters can swing in favor of one particular political party at the state and at the central level. It also reduces accountabilities of the Neta, because suppose the election cycle is every 5 years. So for the 5 years, is it an elected autocracy? Because there is no election that has to happen in any part of the country. That's another argument. Poll expenses can be reduced. Now, when you talk about poll expenses, the Law Commission had also said that about 10,000 crore rupees extra would be needed, because you would need fresh VVPAT machines, you would need fresh EVM machines, and you would also need more staff to conduct elections at such a huge scale. It also reduces the burden on the administration setup. Yes, in the medium to long term, this is going to be a benefit. But in the short term, in the first 10 years, it's going to be a problem, because EC will have the same number of people, but it needs to do a mammoth task at a huge level for the world's largest democracy, for about 80 crore voters in this country. The downside for all regional parties, as I said, that there could be a win, there could be a sway just in favor of one particular political party. No recourse if precedent rule is imposed. Now, this particular point talks about the aspect that suppose a state government has been taken action against by the centre, and if a precedent rule is imposed and the elections are conducted in the 6 months, that's what the constitutional mandate is. But what are you going to do if the election clock is disturbed? So that particular factor or a contingency is not taken into account when you talk about simultaneous elections. This is a reality in a democracy. Better use of security forces. Once again, you would need large amount of forces. Right now, when elections happen in different phases, forces can be moved from one region to another. That won't be a possibility if you have simultaneous elections in this country. It also ensures continuity in policies. Now, because you are constantly in a poll mode, this country is constantly in a poll mode, it is argued that policies are often seen from a populist point of view and no serious thought is given to the policies. Challenge to the federal structure. This is one of the moot points. If at all ever there is a law, and if at all ever it is challenged before a court of law, the key argument against simultaneous elections is that it runs down the authority of the state government. Those are the broad points as far as for and against is concerned. Simultaneous election, one nation, one poll is concerned. And without getting into the technicalities of it as to how many constitutional amendments it would require, what are the states which will have to ratify this particular amendment or a law if it's brought in, those are the legal problems or hurdles that lie in the way. Is it a real reform or a mere diversionary tactic? Let's come back to that moot question. Joining us on the broadcast is Mohammad Amin, who is the former Joint Director of the Election Commission of India. Shazia Almi, who is the spokesperson of the BJP. Ashpreet Kardial from the Congress Party is also joining us on the broadcast. Pradeep Bhati from the Samajwadi Party, and Mr. Brijesh Kalappa, who is an Aam Aadmi Party leader and a lawyer, is also with us on the show. Good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on Viewpoint tonight. Mohammad Amin, coming to you first and trying to take in a word from you and understand from you. The idea of simultaneous elections has been debated in the country on multiple occasions. The Prime Minister has spoken about it. There's a Law Commission report that has come on it. And I'm quoting from that draft report of the Law Commission. The Law Commission report actually notes that back in the 1960s, when simultaneous elections were a reality in this country, it was used as a tool by the Congress Party to ensure one-party dominance in the country. The argument, the tables have turned, and now Congress Party is using this argument against the BJP. In your understanding and experience, how true is that particular idea? Mohammad Amin.
Thank you, Soni. You have invited me for this debate. Actually, if we can go the history of the Election Commission, how they are conducting the election, 1951 and 52. So, election was smoothly going on for the one country, one elections, and up to the 1966, this happened regularly. There is no problem. But after the Mrs. Gandhi intervention, she was the Prime Minister, and forcibly she has imposed the 356 and sometime 358. So that's why she has imbalanced the state governments, and sometimes they dissolve the state government, sometimes they pressurize the Chief Minister, they dissolve the assemblies. So that's why this was happened, and this is not the regular now, and the country is facing lot of the problem about the economic policies and about the expenditure of the Election Commission of India that is imposed on the public directly. So this is the good idea from the Prime Minister's side. He is going to introduce, but there is some difficulties also.
Yeah.
You were mentioning earlier that we don't have any infrastructure like VVPAT machines and EVMs also, and officers also and they move
Yes,
the
yes.
our security persons from here to there. This is a very difficult process, but I am sure that this is a good move. But I am not sure about this election commission can have this type of exercise
Bandwidth, yeah.
within the
If they have
5
the
years.
bandwidth
I
to
think
do that.
this is take a long
there
procedure.
are a lot of, it's a long
Yeah.
procedure, it may take
Yeah.
a longer time. I want to bring in BJP and Congress and Samajwadi Party into the discussion, also Mr. Brijesh Kalappa.
So there is no hue and cry in the opposition parties.
Well, let's hear it from the opposition parties as well as the ruling party. Shazia ji, the key question that the opposition parties are asking is that you cannot pass this bill in the upcoming special session that has been passed. A special committee has been constituted for it. Right now, the idea is being talked about or discussed from the quarters of the government. It's been touted just as a diversionary tactic because you're scared of their alliance. This is an argument that they have put out. I'm putting that to you. Your thoughts to it.
No, they can attribute any motive whatsoever. So, and this is their reasoning. So I have no answers to that. You see, they can think anything. And they can imagine anything. And there is, so you can't counter imagination of any sorts. Prime Minister Modi has been talking about this for the longest period. There have been consultations. There have been many seminars and conclaves that have looked at this idea. And it is not on one occasion that the Prime Minister has spoken about it. Right from 2014 till now, this idea has come up several times. Now, as we learned from former election commission member,
yes,
that this has, and we know this, whether it's 52, 57, 62 and 67, this has happened. However, Article 356 has been used many times to dismiss the local, the state governments. In fact, Indira Gandhi's record is actually, if you read about it, it's actually the worst. She has used that so many times, it's over 50 times that she has used this article to dismiss the elected governments.
Yes.
Now, but this was the rule of the day, and it's because the state assembly and the elections, the state assembly would get dissolved time and time after that the periods or the timelines kept changing to the extent that every year in India we have elections somewhere or the other.
Yes.
And it's just become quite a, I mean, one is very unwieldy. Two, the entire process of moving the army or paramilitary from one place to the other to ensure that there is safety and there is security being maintained at all quarters is becoming a logistical challenge.
One of the reasons...
That's one. Two, the entire work of development, the work of the developmental work, the mandate of every MP and MLA, which is to deliver, which is to fulfill the mandate required of them. That is the basic purpose of having it there in the first place, of them being there in the first place, is getting defeated. Because the entire paraphernalia is used constantly in different cycles of election, campaigning, and then all of it that goes on before and during and after. And the process of making a government.
To that point, I agree that a lot of policies, a lot
of people are out of the town sometimes and not, so they're not there.
Yeah, a lot of policies are populist policies and not really driven by a serious thought. And to that extent, I believe all political parties are guilty and not any single one. Back in the 1960s to now, it's not just the imposition of a precedent rule or the suspension of the state government that has led to different election cycles, but also the creation of new states that has happened in India from the 1960s up till this point. That is the reason why we have so many different cycles of elections. There are multiple reasons for it. Arshpreet Kadia, coming to you and taking in a view from you. Simultaneous elections were a reality during the Congress era in the 1960s. I'm not saying that the political circumstances or the demographic circumstances are similar here, but this is an idea which the Congress party has worked with. Why are you opposing this idea right now?
Thank you very much. You've already said that the time, the circumstances, the situation, the fabric of the country, everything is changed in entirety. Therefore, let's talk of the present. Number one, the Bharatiya Janata Party has already made up their mind and have said that we want one nation, one election. Many of the spokespersons have already asserted it. Now, the fact of the matter is, they say we'll discuss it, we'll consult others. Consulting and discussion happens before you make your mind, not after. That is the problem with the Bharatiya Janata Party. Their dictators, their dictatorial ways are they're just used to it. They're accustomed to it, and they shove it down the throat of the people. They try to impose it every single
please
time.
allow me
Number two.
interjection. Let me interject. You can make your point. I'm not giving the floor to anybody else right now. You know, you can have that criticism of the present government on various other occasions, but right now it's just a committee which has been formed. This is an issue which has already had the consideration of the Law Commission, and right now, once again, a committee is looking into it. There is no ordinance, there is no law that has been put in which is going to be passed. So how is it shoving down anybody's throat?
Thank you. Like I said, that the Bharatiya Janata Party's many spokespersons have already said that we want this to happen. I clearly asked them this question, do you want it to happen or not? They said yes. Number one. Number two, the fact of the matter is not that, they've made a law out of it or they have made the amendments out of it and all that. The fact of the matter is that they have made up their mind. That's where the question lies, that they should have not made up their mind until and unless all the states were consulted with, all the political parties were consulted with, the stakeholders were consulted with. That is where the problem lies. Number two, today the Bharatiya Janata Party is saying it should be one nation, one election. Tomorrow they would say it should be one party and one nation only. That's it. No election at all whatsoever.
Next but Ashpreet, you haven't made a single argument on the merit of it.
Anusha, if you would allow me the time,
please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So one, there are no checks and balances that are going to be left after you do away with the elections. Because what happens is, let's say a person votes for a government, they cannot do anything about it for the 5 years. But in states, in panchayat elections, in MC elections, people can give a piece of their mind to the party if they haven't delivered upon their promises. So this way, their accountability is fixed, their responsibility is fixed, and the Bharatiya Janata Party would know it very well. They are accustomed to working only in the last 5 to 6 months. And now because of this, in the last 5-6 months also, they would stop working. And the next part is that, there are different states that would have different tenures going on right now. Some states have governments which are, left with one more year to go. Yeah. Some are left with 2 more years to go. Yeah. How can you scrap it all? I'll give you an example. Yesterday, in Punjab and Haryana High Court, a notification was withdrawn by the Punjab government because they had dissolved the panchayat 6 months before that, before the tenure was to expire. Now, if the Bharatiya Janata Party, scraps or dissolves the government, state government, before the tenure is expired and
they cannot dissolve the state governments in this manner. You rightly I have limited time, Ashpreet. I have to give the floor to others as well. 30 seconds. Yes, go ahead. Finish your point. Yeah.
So all we are saying is they'll be undermining the people, they'll be undermining the votes, they'll be undermining the states, and they'll be undermining our democracy. Number two, the Bharatiya Janata Party is used to coming up with absurd decisions. You remember the farm laws, you remember the demonetization, and now this. When would the Bharatiya Janata Party learn to have discussions and...
I have to bring in Mr. Brijesh Kalappa and Mr. Pradeep Bhati also into the discussion. The gentlemen have been waiting very patiently. Mr. Brijesh Kalappa, when you don the hat of a lawyer and you look at the idea of simultaneous elections in this country, vis-a-vis the federal structure of this country, that's the core, that's the heart of the argument, that somewhere it violates the federal structure, and if it violates the federal structure, it violates the basic structure of the Constitution. Do you think that argument is tenable in law? What is your learned opinion on this? I ask you this as a lawyer, and of course, you are a representative of the Aam Aadmi Party as well.
See, let me speak both in my personal and my political capacities. According to me, it's a completely harebrained idea, and it's completely unsustainable. Let's assume that today there are elections which are held both for the states and for the center, right? And 1 month later, one of the chief minister resigns and he asks for the assembly to be dissolved. So then what happens to the idea of one state, one election, or one nation, one election? Because one state has already gone, on a different tangent, right? So then subsequently 6 months down the line, yet another state, and we have a lot of states. It's not that we have just, one union and one state. We have many states. So how do you keep all the states in line? Are you going to tell them, is the Prime Minister going to speak to them and tell them, please don't, precipitate a crisis, don't dissolve the assembly? Is it possible? Is it possible for the will of the people to be, pushed around in this kind of manner? It's an absurd idea at the very, very start. Like you rightly pointed out, This was something which the constitution makers perhaps intended. Perhaps it was started. It started in the 50s, 60s in right earnest. Then what happened? So it obviously tells you that in the long run it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
How do you is it for the good of having one election, which is a one state, one nation, one election, that you're going to finish off the electoral terms of so many state governments? How many of them will agree? So I think that, this is all is talk in the in the evening over a drink, and then one forgets about it. But taking it forward seriously and then having constitutional functionaries come and sit in former constitutional functionaries come and think of this elaborate exercise, I think is completely, it's completely ridiculous. If,
Well, I do think, sir, that
terms,
this exercise is something more than over a drink, because they have set up a committee and it looks very serious. And the Prime Minister has also spoken about it. Mr. Pradeep Bhati, the idea that one nation, one poll is an antithesis to the existence of regional parties in this country. Does it show somewhere the nervousness of the regional parties? That if there is a national election and a state election together, there would be a wind, there would be a sway, and in that wave, the regional parties would get lost. Is it lack of confidence, or are there genuine concerns at play? Mr. Bhati.
Thank you, Anusha, and good evening to all. I don't know why you are saying that there is a nervousness in any regional parties, or maybe it be any party. When we do not have any draft ready by the government, forget about the Law Commission and other committee has been appointed as of now. We are waiting for we will be waiting for once it is put in the parliament or government officially put this draft in front of opposition and in front of the entire country. So there is no nervousness of any kind, may it be your words, but I don't think that will take it with a positive note. We'll definitely like to contribute on the basis what is been presented to us. Whatever in the best interest of the country, we'll try to give the positive feedbacks. That is
in principle, sir, what is the position of your party? If I were to ask you directly.
When there is nothing in front or there is no draft in the public domain, how can I say that it is I'll be in for or it will be in against of anything which is not even there? And what Shazia was telling that it was an imaginary thing. So what I should comment on an imaginary thing? What will be there? I said they will be going with the positive mindset. That is more than enough to tell what we are expecting and what should be done. But you are in the introduction section.
Mr. Bhati, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you there. There is a press conference happening by the former Law Minister, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. Let's listen into that.
Whole scam give and take था. पूरा आपका कॉमनवेल्थ गिव एंड टेक था और लालू प्रसाद जी और उनकी सरकार ने तो गिव एंड टेक की पराकाष्ठा प्राप्त कर दी साहब। चारा घोटाले में सजा मिल गई, एक नहीं कई केसेस में हैं बेल पर, तो साहब नए नए प्रकरण खुलते हैं, जमीन दो नौकरी लो। तो गिव एंड टेक का इससे बड़ा नमूना क्या हो सकता है?